2022, the year that I graduated. Also the year where a bunch of banger movies came out. At least I would hope so. There were quite a few great movies, but that's besides the point. I have written down my top 10 movies of last year, so just for the sake of time, I'm gonna jump right into this. This will be controversial. This is just merely my opinion. Your opinion matters as well, but if you are against my opinion, well, that's me for you. So let's just jump right into this. So coming in at number 10 is Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, I know a lot of you just at number 10, Top Gun Maverick. No, it should be number 1 at the list, but for me, it's at number 10. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is fantastic. Being that it's a sequel, I don't even know, I can't even count the years in my head right now, but a sequel that was a long time in development, and it lived up to the potential. This was a great movie. Now, yeah, I really have nothing negative to say. Now, I unfortunately did not watch it in the theater, which is also just another crime against humanity, that I just did not see this or witness it, even in the crappiest theater, specifically the AMC theater I have. I mean, but that doesn't do it justice. This movie was fantastic. It does everything right. It does everything a legacy sequel that a lot of them would do, but this one does it better. It pushes all the right buttons. It does everything right. It's both, in a way, action-packed, but also keeps the human drama, entertaining at least. So it is just a fantastic, entertaining movie through and through. I know it's not higher, but it is still such a great film. I want to get that out of the way. It is a fantastic movie that I really, really do love. Especially since I'm not a massive fan of the original Top Gun. It could have been the day I was watching it, but to me, it wasn't my type of movie. But the sequel, on the other hand, surpasses the original, in my humble opinion, and does everything a sequel should do, quite frankly. So it does everything right. So next one on our list is Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is another film that I bet a lot of you also just spit on the floor because this movie should obviously be higher. This movie's just flat out fantastic. For me, when I first watched it, this is on par with every A24 movie. When you watch an A24 movie, you need to go in with at least a little bit of an open mind, and this is a perfect example of that, because first time watching it for me, even I was confused. I get the whole message around it, but I was confused about all the multiverse intricacies, basically, but upon further viewings of it, I just grew more and more appreciative of it. It's just a fantastic movie that is just a blast, basically. I don't want to butcher his name, but the actor from The Goonies and Indiana Jones, I'm glad he's making a comeback in this movie, and he is absolutely fantastic here. So is Michelle Yeoh, which I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce her name. All actors do a fantastic job in this. It's both action-packed and filled to the brim with humor, and it's just a fantastic film. I know I keep repeating myself, but I cannot stress that enough. I do recommend it, but I would say, especially for any A24 movie, especially since a lot of them are going to be on my list, so be prepared for a lot of videos on A24 movies, because I am a huge fan of the studio, actually. So I do recommend, if you do end up watching it, at least go in with the mindset that you are going to have to use your brain for it. But in a good way. It's a fun movie. Even if you have no idea what's happening, it's just a fun movie. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, and the next one I know is going to be really controversial, specifically those who are actually critics, if they even stumble upon this video, which is very unlikely. But the next one is Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, this was a movie I went in with lukewarm expectations to begin with because I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the first Avatar movie. Um, it is great. It is a well, I need to rephrase that. It is not a great movie. It is a decent movie. It's actually a good movie, but it is very, I don't want to use the word cliche, but it is very derivative of other films. And that kind of hurt the first film, and I went in for the sequel with very lukewarm expectations, and I just got to say I was absolutely blown away by this. This was a movie that I thought wasn't going to be great, but it ends up being better than the first movie, to be honest. It's obviously not a, flawless movie. I mean, the visuals stand out on its own. I mean, that's partly why I also love it, is that it was that immersive. The effects were really realistic to the point where I couldn't believe we went this far in technology. It is just that good in the technological aspect. In terms of story, it's not getting any better. I could, as soon as they went to I can't pronounce it because I'm just gonna butcher it, but basically when they went to the water um, clan, that's when I could basically predict where the movie was going. But other than that, and also the ending to me kind of drags a little bit, especially since it's a 3 hour movie, so that is a long time staying in that seat. But overall, it moves pretty well for the most part. It's a breezy movie for the most part, but again, not flawless. The action is spectacular. The acting was actually improved. I thought, at least. I did watch it in 3D. I watched this multiple times in the theater, which is shocking to say, but I watched it both in IMAX 3D and regular 3D, and both times it was really great. It was a very great movie just to see, and that's partly why it was so immersive, is that IMAX screen. So, not a flawless movie, obviously, and not like a fantastic movie, but for me, it earns its spot on my list because I gotta say the last hour truly is James Cameron just going apeshit basically with the action because it is pretty freaking awesome. So, on to the next one. Coming in at number 7 is The Black Phone. Now, this is also another movie where, upon more viewings of it, I did come to appreciate it just a little bit more each and every viewing because I'm going to be honest, I did not like this movie as much as I thought I was going to. I thought it was kind of underwhelming, and also since it's based on not Stephen King's short story, but his son's can't speak today, short story. Um, there is quite a bit of story there, but also just not as much as they need to fill it up as like a over 80-minute movie basically. So this movie could have worked well as like a 40-minute short, but obviously, the movie's gonna go better. And for me, the movie was pretty good upon more viewings. Ethan Hawke kills it as, funny enough, the killer, as the grabber. I thought he was terrifying. It was equally emotional and also just in a way kind of powerful. It's another one of those, you see the Stephen King aspects there, like the alcoholic abusive dad. You got, the monster killer basically. You got dead kids. I could name a bunch of other stuff such as the bullies in this, for instance. But all in all, it's a good movie. Enough for me to add it to the list because it was again one of those movies that I did not like at first, but the more I watched it and the more I paid attention, the more I just really liked it. And yeah, so it earns it, in my opinion, but, to each their own. Alright, coming in at number 6 is the new Scream. I'm just gonna call it Scream 2022, basically. Now, for the Scream fans, this may be controversial, but I don't know. Out of the 5 people that watch my channel are like massive Scream fans, but to me, this was a pretty great movie. Yes, I'm going to use the word great because this came out during the month where normally a bunch of crappy movies do come out, and this was not one of them. Now, I didn't watch, this is going to sound very controversial, but I did not watch the other 2 Screams. I didn't watch Scream 3 or Scream 4. I've heard very mixed to very negative things about them, so suffice to say, the first 2 Screams, in my opinion, are still good movies. In fact, I'd go to say they're even great movies next to this one. So I went into this movie, expecting your standard Scream movie, and that's what it was, but it, on par with every other Scream. It's very meta, and it has a lot of fun poking a lot of holes at the fans, at the fandom specifically, and also just the series in general, because it is very meta on that level. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It was just, all in all, very entertaining, very brutal, and also just so much fun to watch. Just having all the characters come together from the original film to be in this one. Now, obviously, there's the new Scream. There's Scream 6 that did just release. It's Scream 5. But Scream 6 did release recently, and I'll give my thoughts on that. But overall, this movie is pretty good. Alright, we're at the halfway point, and coming in at number 5 is Nope from Jordan Peele. As with his other 2 movies, Jordan Peele knocks it out of the park again with this. I won't say this is his best film. I still think his best film is Get Out. But this is up there. I would say this is his second best. First time watching it, again, one of those movies where first time watching, I wasn't a big fan. I liked it. I wouldn't say that I loved it. But I watched it a second time and I ended up going like, yeah, this is actually a great movie. This is a movie that will divide a lot of people, especially since a bunch of people thought this was going to be your Alien movie. And there's a moment in the film where Jordan Peele kind of hints at that, where he basically says, I could make this movie, but I'm going to make this movie instead. And he does it very cleverly, in my opinion. The spoilers here, the twist of having the UFO be the actual monster was actually very, very clever, in my opinion. And also, it leads to a very frightening, a very terrifying scene, in my opinion. This movie is also pretty scary. Like, it does have a moment, and as a kid growing up, I wasn't a big fan of monkeys, so this reignited that fear in me. And the acting is pretty good. Again, it takes a couple of viewings to really understand the messages it presents, but once you get it, it's a pretty rewarding movie to watch, in my opinion. So, just a great movie. Alright, on to the next one. And coming in at number 4, even though he should be number 1, in my opinion, well, number 1 artist, but you freaking get it, is Elvis. Now, musician biopics tend to not be as great as both this movie and Rocket Man, and Ray, and a bunch of others that I probably can't think of at the moment, because Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't a great movie. There, I said it. But this movie in particular was really, really great. Instead of focusing mostly on Elvis's life, it focuses on his career, which I really do enjoy. You do get his life, but they don't focus or linger on it too much. Austin Butler knocks it out of the park as Elvis. There were moments, 90% of the movie, I would say I swear I was just watching a 2.5 hour Elvis movie. So he knocks it out of the park. Tom Hanks, you know, not his best performance. In fact, I'd say this was kind of his worst performance to date. But, that's really just mainly a nitpick. It doesn't really ruin the movie for me, but it is kind of a glaring issue that I have with it. I would say next to Tom Hanks, the beginning half of the movie is pretty odd. This is by Baz Luhrmann, I believe his name. Can't pronounce his name as well, but he makes very stylish movies, and this one is very stylish. So you have to get used to his style of directing, and the first, I would say, half hour to 40 minutes, maybe even hour, it is pretty jaunting to see, but in the end, as the movie goes further, it just gets better and better as it progresses. And to that extent, the movie's just fantastic. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, coming up on the last three, we have The Batman. Okay, I'm gonna have to make this as brief as possible because I could talk about this movie for hours. But just to summarize this movie, Robert Pattinson knocks it out of the park. Another rebooted Batman, obviously, trilogy that's possibly going to happen. The sequel's already greenlit, which I'm already looking forward to, but from the action, the story, the acting, the sets, the atmosphere, everything this movie does is right on par with everything a Batman movie should be. Dark Knight movies aside, this is how a Batman movie should be. And also Tim Burton Batman movies aside, because Michael Keaton also is pretty badass as Batman. But this is how it should be done. To make a comic accurate Batman, and this movie does it. It's very, very great in my opinion to a start of a new series. I would hope that they don't screw up this series, but so far this is a great start to it. Alright, I've already talked about this movie, so I'm just going to make this brief, but coming in at number 2 is The Fabelmans. Obviously, in my opinion, it is a great movie. It is one of Steven Spielberg's, I'm a Steven Spielberg geek to begin with. I nerd out and geek out. I have a nerdgasm every time he comes out with a new film. And this was another great film of his, in my opinion. This was really great. Obviously, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but since I've already reviewed it. But yeah, it's number 2 in my opinion. Alright, before I go into my number 1, I'm just going to talk about some ones that didn't make it to the list, but are still some very great movies that I think are ones that you should go see. I'll start with the movie Prey. This is a pretty great movie, all things considered, especially for a Predator prequel. It's set during the Comanche times, which is pretty cool, I would say. And the overall film is just a very wonderful, well shot, well acted, and also just a well done movie in general that I think should be seen by all families. Not families, obviously, but by Predator fans. That's what I meant to say. Alright, next one up that is also a pretty great movie is the sequel to Knives Out, Glass Onion. This is just another, Rian Johnson aside, this is just another fantastic, well done mystery that just proves that Rian Johnson really should continue making these movies. This is just a great movie, and Daniel Craig knocks it out of the park. When does he not? And it's obviously not as great as the first, but it's pretty up there. Next one I'll briefly talk about is She Said. This is one that I thought was just going to be, all political stuff, but you know what? It's political stuff that's very timely. This exposes Harvey Weinstein's crimes, and it's done in a very, very well done manner. Obviously, not a whole lot of people are going to get into this, but to me, this was a very well done journalistic type of story, similar to Steven Spielberg's The Post, but in my humble opinion, this was just a very well acted, well done film that and it's also just on par with the times, obviously. But that's really all that should be said about the movie. I don't have anything like that major to say about it, but other than it is a pretty great movie. Now, I was going to talk about three other movies, but just for the sake of time and also for the sake of my poor computer's gigabyte storage, I'll save those for a later video so I can just hop right into my number one. And last but certainly not least is The Northmen from Robert Eggers. This movie is no shy of just being one of the most badass films I've ever seen. It's a crime, honestly, that this movie did not get the attention that it quite frankly deserves. If you know Robert Eggers, obviously he spends a lot of time and devotion into his movies, specifically with, you know, obviously movies like The Lighthouse and The Witch, his other previous two movies. He focuses on historical accuracy, and to that extent, this movie is pretty historically accurate. Um, but it's just very, very well done, in my opinion. I mean, there were just so many moments where it's just pure epic badassery from Vikings. I don't really. The other reason why I just absolutely love this movie is, in my opinion, there's just not a whole lot of flaws with it. In fact, I can't think of any flaws with it. I know a lot of people were necessarily not liking the movie because it wasn't the movie that they got or what they wanted, but that does not matter because for me, the movie this movie alone, the movie that we ended up getting, was really cool and really epic as it was. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of fighting in this, but there are a couple of handful moments, specifically in the beginning, but also near the end, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But in the beginning, and also a little bit in the middle of the second and third act, kind of right in between there were just pure adrenaline filled moments that are just really, really cool. Especially the theater that I went to, it was very loud. I'm pretty sure this movie wasn't shown in IMAX, but it should have, because it was just awesome how cool it was. Now, getting into the ending, I'm just gonna say was one of the most epic endings I've ever seen to a movie, and it lasted way too short. If there's a criticism, and it's not really a criticism, it's not even a nitpick, but it could have been a little bit longer, but for what it was just pure badassery that was just great to witness on the big screen. Just two naked Vikings, basically. If I was obviously attracted to a different gender, besides females, this movie would, obviously give me a very big reaction. But since I am a straight man, then I just really like epic movies. This movie plays it to the absolute max, in my opinion, and that's what makes it number one. And there you have it. There are my top 10 movies of last year. Obviously, I'm going to come out with a whole bunch of other lists and a bunch of other movie reviews whenever I get the chance, but otherwise, this is the one I wanted to start off with. So, yeah, that's about it. See ya.